Good evening, friends. Today we are going to talk about the various techniques of inventory control. Now, why there is need of inventory control? So, in order to come to the topic, I would first like to create an importance of inventory. Now, since in today's present situation, customers are the king of market. You agree with me, right? Since they are the king of the market, they can manipulate, they can play with the market condition, and because they are the king, we as a manufacturer or the supplier or the service provider has to dance on their tunes. Now, in order to capture the market, I have to satisfy the needs of the customers. In order to satisfy the needs of the customers, the very basic thing the organization should be in a position to supply the goods as and when they are required by the customer. Not only that, the price at which I will supply the goods should be so competitive that it will attract the customer towards my good. For that purpose, I have to be very careful regarding the cost of the goods, right? When I am talking about the cost of the goods, in order to give a competitive price, it is very much necessary for every organization to reduce the cost to as much as possible it can do, so that if you are able to reduce at least 3 to 4% of the total cost, that will in return give you a base for giving a competitive price. That means the cost is reduced, so you can reduce the selling price. That will give you a competitive position to give a competitive price to your product, because of which the customer will get attracted. When I am using the word that the cost should be reduced, it doesn't mean that I should play with the quality of the product. Since customers are the king, because of modernization and advanced technology, every customer and globalization, every customer wants the goods at a lower cost with the best quality. Now, if you want to have the same quality and cost reduction, so we have to go for some alternative techniques which helps us to reduce the cost. So I think the funda is clear that in order to reduce the cost, why to reduce the cost? We have to give a competitive price. Why we have to give a competitive price? Since if we can give a competitive price, we can be in the competition in the market, otherwise we'll be thrown out of the market by the customers. Since customers are king, they can go to anyone. There is no hard and fast rule that they will come and buy your product since you are good looking or something like that. It is not like that. Customer nowadays don't see the relationship between you and the company, between the company and the customer. They just see the price and the quality of the product. If the quality is high, at the same time, if the quality is high, that means the cost should be, which will also be high, because if you want to improve the quality, the cost should be increased in order to improve the quality. But if you do that thing, you will not be in a position to give a competitive price. So, the basic funda in order to which will help us to keep you in the market, in the competition, is to reduce the cost without reducing the quality. And that can be done because of globalization. This is happening because every product is having a supplementary available in the market with the same quality but difference in price. So in order to be in the market, we have to adopt certain techniques to control the cost. And when I talk about the cost of the product, the major the major part of the cost of the product consists of cost of inventory. So when I am talking about cost of the product, I should first deal with stock of the inventory, because that is the huge amount which is included in the cost, right? So investment of the company basically on the inventory plays an important role in the calculation of the cost of the product. So if the cost of the inventory, raw material, is reduced, you are able to reduce the total cost of the product, because other services which we are using for the production of the product, a particular product, does not give a certain to the maximum extent. They are very less in investment, means the amount invested for other production operation, this expenses are not contributing much to the total cost of the product. The total contribution, the maximum contribution of the cost of the product is because of the raw material. So it is very much necessary for the company to implement a technique which can control the inventory cost, and at the same time which can reduce the cost of the overall production. So for that purpose, different inventory techniques, inventory control techniques are adopted by the company as per the nature of the product, as per the nature of the business. Right? So we are going to study about this techniques which helps the company for reducing the cost. So what is the basic objective of inventory control? The basic objective of inventory control is to make sure the inventories are available as and when they are needed for production. For the continuous and the flawless flow of the operation cycle, it is very much necessary that the supply should be continuously provided to the production department. Right? In order to reduce the idle time of the worker and the machine, inventory control is very much necessary. Basic objectives of inventory controls we are talking about: in order to keep the continuous flow of raw material for the production department, in order to reduce the wastage, in order to reduce the idle time of the machine and the laborers. It is very much necessary that there should be a continuous flow of inventory from the store, from the godown to the production department, and from the production department to the market, and that can be efficiently done with reduced cost with the help of various techniques of inventory control. So today we are going to have a brief about the various techniques there are many techniques in the market, but out of that few we are going to discuss, so that you will get an idea that how important the inventory control is. Why inventory control is done? In order to reduce the cost of the production. Since the cost of the product, the major contribution to the cost of the product is the cost of raw material. If your cost of the product is 100 rupees, out of that 60 to 70% amount will be the cost of your inventories, and remaining 30% will be the other expenses. So you can understand how important is the inventory control is. So at this, why we are doing inventory control? In order to reduce the cost of the production. And reduction in the cost of the production doesn't mean that you have to reduce the quality. Keeping the same quality of the product, but we keep on trying. Every organization is keep on trying to reduce the cost by having a proper control on inventory. So here some of the inventory techniques. So we are going to now look into various methods, few of the various methods of inventory technique. As we know, what is the importance of that? We are doing inventory control for the continuous flow of raw material from the godown to the production department, in order to reduce the idle time of labor and machine hours. If suddenly we find that the production department is demanding more raw material, but in the godown there is no raw material, because of that what will happen? The stock out cost will be more. There will be idle time of machines as well as laborers, but the company has to pay to them. Though they are sitting idle, that is not their mistake, it is a mistake of the inventory control people, the cost department people. Understood? So for that purpose, that situation should not come while doing our operational cycle. So that operational cycle should not get interrupted. Because of this reason, we have to do inventory control, and it is a very important criteria of every cost department to have an inventory control, because this will lead to reduction in the cost in a major portion. So few of them we are going to study now. The very first of the inventory control is ABC analysis. Now, this is one of the method which company can use. Any company can use any method depending upon the nature of the product. It is not like that this method is beautiful or good. It is easier to understand and everything, so we will follow this method only. We will ignore other method. No, it depends on the nature of the product. So in ABC analysis is also based on the principle of vital few trials many. ABC analysis based on the principle of vital few trials many. Now what do you mean by vital few and trials many? Means in the production there are different raw materials you are going to use. There are certain raw materials which are very important, though they are minimum in the quantity, but the amount invested in that and the consumption amount invested in that will be huge. Though the quantity use of that raw material, particular raw material, will be less, but the amount invested in that will be huge. That's the reason they are called vital few and trials many. There may be certain raw materials which are used in huge quantity, but their value at the end of the day is very, but the consumption amount by multiplying the price per unit into the unit consumed, when you multiply that, it comes very less. That's the reason it is called vital few, trivial many. Means in a production we might be dealing with raw materials which have great importance, means great value. Great value means very high value, very costly, means it is very expensive. Though you are using a very few quantity, but when you multiply that quantity with the amount per unit, you will get a huge amount of contribution. Suppose if, for example, if the total raw material cost including all the raw materials is 100, out of that one of the raw material 80 rupees I am spending it for that particular few vital important raw material, and remaining 20 rupees for other raw materials. That's the reason it is this based on the principles called vital few and trivial many. So this principle of managing inventory is also known as Pareto's law or 80-20 law. Pareto's law or 80-20 principle. This principle is also called as Pareto's law or 80-20 principle. I will just explain this in a diagram. This is a diagram given. In this you can see the red mark, which is 20%. 20% of the input is giving you maximum output, means maximum expenses. 80% of the expenses. With the amount, with the units, with the input of 20% input is giving you maximum expense of the total output. So that was explained in this diagram. That's the reason it is called 80-20. Why it is called 80-20? Because take an example of shirt. You require 10,000 meters of cloth. Suppose you require buttons. You are buying buttons, 40,000 buttons for the shirt. Third, you require needles and thread. You require 60,000 or 70,000 or 80,000 needles and threads. Right? So there are different categories. How much is the cloth required? 10,000 units meter. So if you are counting in quantity, it is minimum 10,000. Buttons you require 40,000 and needles and thread you require 70,000 to 80,000 in quantity. But when you multiply the amount with that, if you are talking about 10,000 meters of cloth into say about 2,000, say 40 rupees per meter, it will give you 40 lakhs. 20,000 buttons, 20,000 buttons at the rate of 20 paise or 2 paise each. 70 to 80,000 needles at the rate of 0.01 paise. If you are buying in a lump sum quantity, you will get the needles and thread at a very less rate. So the contribution of though the quantity used by you in cloth is less, but the amount is huge. It is required 40 lakhs. For buttons, 20, 30, 40,000 buttons into 20 paise. You get how much? 80,000. And for needles, 70,000 into 0.01 paise. It comes again lesser than. So here we are dividing the raw material in different categories. A category item will be those items which are handled in bulk, means you can count in a bulk normally. but the amount, though the items may be few, but the amount of consumption when you calculate, it will be huge. It may contribute major part of the total raw material cost. B item will be button, that will be called as average quantity and average amount, and C, the quantity which are means the raw material which are huge in quantity but less in amount, they are easily available. So I will be dividing my raw material for this type of inventory control. I will be dividing the raw material into three categories: A, B and C. A will be that category where requires more attention, more care, because they are huge in amount. Consumption is huge in amount. It is very expensive. Cloth and fabrics which I have to maintain, right? Then buttons, which are also huge in members, but the average rate, they are average, and the rate is also less. For that, less attention can be, it does not require that much attention which A item requires, right? And C, I will be categorized in this category those items which are easily available, for which I am not necessary, it is not necessary for me to keep in reserve. It are easily available at any quantity without any lead time. So in this way we divide the inventory in a different category, and it is said that division of things. If you want to do a proper control, divide the work. Any work you are doing, if you are one person is doing everything, definitely you will make a mistake and the things will go wrong. But if the work is divided and then individual work is allotted to someone, so what will happen? It will give you a better quality with less wastage. Similarly, that same principle is followed in this inventory technique, where you are dividing the raw material on the basis of the consumption amount, and give more attention to those raw materials which are giving you more amount of investment, means which require more amount of invention, which requires more care and attention. Because if such inventories are not properly controlled, what will happen? It will stop our production process. Then second B and third C. Keeping this principle in mind, we follow ABC control by making this method. By following this method, we can have a control on the basis of importance. So that is what static reveals, that just a handful of items accounts for bulk expenditure, means that will categorize under A, means handful items will give you a bulk expenditure cost, means A. Then there are numerous in numbers, but their contribution is less significant. And the third, ABC analysis thus tends to segregate all the items into A, B and C. What is A item? The A item usually are taken 10 to 15% of the raw material, but it will contribute to the expense to 70 to 75%. B will be, therefore it should be detailed, it should be controlled in detailed way, and their procurement will be done frequently. B item will be those items who are item of 10 to 15% items are required, but they are contributing only 10 to 15% of the expenses. Right? They are intermediate items. Okay, the control on this item the control on this item is needed, but it is less as compared to A. And the C item is the items whose quantity is 70 to 50%, but they are contributing only 10 to 15%. So they are to be much attention is not necessary to be given on these items, because we know instead of blocking the amount in such type of materials, since they are easily available and whatever quantity you are get from the local market, so we will keep less stock of this type of categories. Raw material will be kept less in the godown, because we know that we can easily available and whatever quantity we want. So in this way, ABC analysis do the inventory technique. Now the second one is HML analysis. Now under this technique, this technique's analysis use price criteria, whereas in ABC analysis we use consumption criteria, right? But in HML techniques we use price criteria. Price means per unit price. Here in this criteria, using this methods of techniques of inventory control, the management people will divide the raw material on the basis of price: high, medium and low. Very high price per unit. I am talking about per unit. In ABC it is, see, more or less we are finding it's similar, but there we are taking into consideration the consumption amount, total consumption amount, here per unit cost. So the raw material which is having a very high price per unit, they are classified under high category, then low, and then the least. And then to classify these items, they are arranged in a descending order, and so that to have a fixed cutoff line. For example, in the management may decide that all the items of price from price above 1000 will be in the category high, in the category H. The management will keep that items whose prices are from 100 to 1000 in category B, medium, and the prices which are below 100 per unit price, the material cost whose prices are below 100 will be kept under category C. So on the basis of that, we can keep the level of stock, right? Because for a high value category you require investment in your hand. So what you will do, you will keep in stock more than the medium one, and least one will not keep in the stock, because they can be easily available as in they can easily bought as and when they are needed, since they are very least per unit, because since they are having least cost per unit. Understood? So this is one of the technique through which we can do an inventory control, by again classifying the raw material into on the basis of their price tag per unit. The next one is weight analysis. The next one is what? Weight analysis. When I am talking about weight analysis, in this we are analyzing this classification. This weight analysis represented classification of items on the basis of criticality. How critical the particular inventory is for the company. According to the critical means, if that particular stock is not there, my production will stop. If that particular stock is not there, my production will not stop, but the expense will increase. And if that particular stock is not there at all, it will interrupt my production for a shorter period of time. So on the basis of criticality, I can analyze the raw material on the basis of their criticality. That means vital, essential, desirable. Vital, essential, desirable. I can give you an example on this case. That take an example of Maruti company. Since there, if they are maintaining an inventory may be in form of raw material and technology as well as tools and spares, right? So I am talking in this case, if Maruti India company, Maruti Suzuki company is following this analysis, so they will keep the vital stock, means the vital category composed of those items, because of which if the absence of those stock will stop your production, which should not happen, because if your production stops, the cost of operation will be high and your operations will not work properly. So they are vital stock. For example, iron and steel is a vital stock, because if you don't have iron and steel, we can't produce our product. So that is a vital stock. Second, technology, essential. See, you have the iron in stock, but you don't have the technology to do to mold them, to shape them, to everything. So that technology is one of the other, or the mechanism or the technology or the machines. If you don't have that in spare, that will interrupt. If they are out of stock, so what will happen? The out of stock cost will be increased, and that will put more pressure on the company's cost of production. Since Maruti is suffering, last time they had suffered because not because of this out of stock, but there was a strike. There is a certain situation that happened that there was a certain strike in the company, because of that they suffered. But I am talking about technology. If they don't have technology, then what is the use of that amount invested in iron and steel? So they should have proper technological know-how, that how to produce, right? That is essential group include those items which stock out cost will be very high. Then the third category, desirable groups. For example, tools and spares which is used for the production. If these tools and spares, if nut and bolts are not available, my production will stop for a certain period, short period, but it will not stop for a long period, it will stop for a short period. So they are desirable, means this type of stock can be, it will stop your production, but it will not put much effect the stock out cost will be not as much as it is for the vital and the essential part. The production will get interrupted for a shorter period of time, but again will come back with same action by procuring that, because they are the items which can be easily available and purchased by the company. So there is no need to stock this type of stock, since their stock out cost is very less. Understood? So according to this, I have given you example in weight analysis. Take an example of Maruti car. Iron and steel will be the vital. Because of this, if this stock is not available, if they are not properly controlled or stocked, what will happen? They will be facing a problem of no production, means production will get stopped, which will create a stop for the operation cycle, which will block the lots of money. Understood? Second, essential, which are whose stock out cost will become very high if these stocks get out of stock. So the stock out cost means because of this, my stock out cost will be very huge. They are essential. Since they are essential, then the desirable component, I told you, it's tools and spares. If tools and spares are not there, it will stop my production, but it will not give much effect as the first two will give to the company.